I'm sharing ways you can use AI tools like ChatGPT and image generators in this episode of the Speaking Your Brand podcast. More and more women are making an impact by starting businesses, running for office, and speaking up for what matters. With my background as a TV political analyst, entrepreneur, and speaker, I interview and coach purpose-driven women to shape their brands, grow their companies, and become recognized as influencers in their field. This is Speaking Your Brand, your place to learn how to persuasively communicate your message to your audience. Hi, and welcome to the Speaking Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Carol Cox. We're continuing this new series that I'm doing all about AI, artificial intelligence. It really kicked off with the trends episode that I did at the beginning of January. That was number 310, where I talked about 3 trends that were going to be seen in 2023. The first one being the rise of AI tools. The second one being a huge shift that we're going to be seeing in online marketing. And the third trend was a resurgence of in-person activities. In the last episode, I talked about how we can thrive in the age of AI. So how can we double down on being human for real? And I shared 3 things that you can start doing now. Because I know if you're listening to this podcast, you want to share your message, you want to have an impact on more people, and you also want to grow your business. And as online marketing changes, as our businesses and industries are going to change as a result, how can you adapt? And that's really why I'm doing this series, and I'm talking a lot about AI because I know what a transformation it's going to have on all of us. In 3 to 5 years from now, it is believed that the majority of the content that we interact with or create will be synthetically or artificially generated. And I'm seeing stats up to 90% of the content online will be synthetically or artificially generated. We're not necessarily going to know what is real or who is real, which is why I feel like we need to double down on being human, hence last week's episode. We also need to learn to work with these AI tools, not pretend like they don't exist or they're not going to affect us. And you don't have to be a techie or think of yourself as tech savvy to start trying them out, which is why I'm doing this episode. And at the end, I'm going to share just a little bit of a sneak peek, a preview of something that we're working on in the AI space that I'm really excited about. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us on the Speaking Your Brand podcast. At Speaking Your Brand, we empower women entrepreneurs and professionals to confidently and effectively communicate their unique brand message and story to a wider audience. Our coaching and training services help our clients develop their thought leadership platforms and create compelling signature talks that inspire and influence others. We believe by amplifying the voices of women and increasing their visibility, we work towards disrupting the status quo and driving positive change in the world. If you'd like to learn about how we can work together, go to speakingyourbrand.com. And by the way, that paragraph that I just read was a rewrite from our original kind of paragraph mission statement. And I fed that into ChatGPT and it rewrote it like I just said it out loud. I think it did a pretty good job. Now, let's get on with the show. Let's dive in now to look at some of these AI tools like ChatGPT and image generators. I'm going to share how we've been starting to experiment with them here at Speaking Your Brand and give you some ideas of how you can do so as well. So these AI tools are what are called generative artificial intelligence. So that means that you give it a prompt, like a text prompt right now, and then the AI tool will come back and generate, hence the word generative AI, will generate text, images, sounds, video, audio, etc., in response to the prompts that you give it. ChatGPT is an AI writing tool by OpenAI, and as of right now, it's free to use. I believe they're going to come out with a paid plan at some point, but right now it's free to use. There's a link in the show notes where you can go and sign up for an account. And what these AI writing tools do is that they literally predict what the next word in the sentence it thinks is going to be based on all of the data that it's consumed and analyzed from all of the books, all the posts, articles, social media posts, podcast transcripts, everything, news articles, everything that's been on the internet. So when you ask it to do something, it's just like a little text box prompt. It's just a free form prompt. And you go and you ask it to do something. You can ask it to rewrite something. You can ask it to create something brand new. And so you can ask it to write a blog post. You can ask it to write a blog post with bullet points. You can ask it to write an outline, an agenda for a workshop on a particular topic that you want to do. You can ask it to write an email, a poem, song lyrics, scientific journal articles, news articles, law briefs, video scripts, podcast scripts. Really just all these different types of formats. And what's fun about it is that it knows what these different formats are. So it knows, say, for a video script, it's going to put in those little formatting things like person looks at camera or, music segues. That's the same thing for podcast transcripts or intro and the musical bridge. It actually puts those things in there. So it understands different types of writing that you can ask it to do. You can also prompt it by asking for a certain style. So you can say, write a poem in the style of Dr. Seuss, or write a poem in the style of Mary Oliver. You can ask it to write song lyrics in the style from Hamilton the musical or Chicago the musical. You can ask it to write something in the style of famous people. So obviously it knows a lot of the styles of well-known things and famous people because they have a lot of writing, they have a lot of data on the internet. So you can ask it to write a speech in the style of John F. Kennedy or in the style of Barack Obama. You can also prompt it by different types of sentiments. So you can ask it to write in a professional style, in a serious style, or in a more of a fun style, or exciting, or silly. So you can just put these prompts in and then have it generate something for you. Now, I always say this asterisk, this caveat, is that it is well known that the ChatGPT and these AI writing tools are not necessarily 100% factually accurate. So this is not like doing a search in Google and finding out something. Google has done a better job over the years of trying to bring back factual information in the search results. ChatGPT is not like that because the AI is not it's not doing a database lookup. It's not looking for a fact. It's just predicting what word is going to come next and the sentence that it's writing for you. And so that being said, that's why it's fun to use ChatGPT to kind of write some of these things like blog posts and emails and poems, and video scripts, podcast scripts, and so on, and then go back, obviously, and edit it. Ryan Reynolds, the actor, has a really great video. It's only a minute long. I included the link in the show notes where he used ChatGPT to write an advertisement for his company, Mint Mobile. And so he put in these different prompts. Like he told it to make it funny, to include a curse word, to mention something in particular, which it did. So there's a certain phrase to include in there. And he had a couple of other requirements in the prompts. And then he read it and it sounded pretty good. It sounded like him. And he said that it's mildly terrifying, but compelling. And I think that sums up so much of our experiences so far using these AI tools is that yes, mildly terrifying and yet very compelling at the same time. Let me give you some examples of how we've been using ChatGPT. I've been taking some of the emails that I write, so emails that I send to our Thought Leader Academy clients, emails that I send to the email list, even one-on-one emails, and I'm copying and pasting them, putting it into ChatGPT and asking it to rewrite it to make them sound more fun and exciting. Because I tend to be kind of a more professional, business, direct type of writer, and so it has been rewriting them to make them more fun and exciting. Now, what I find hilarious about it is that sometimes it really, obviously the voice that it comes back with, the style that it comes back with does not sound like me. So I would not necessarily use this, but it does give me ideas of things that I could use to rewrite the email. So for example, here's the prompt that I gave it recently. I said, can you please rewrite this email to make it sound more fun and exciting? And then I put in the email. This is for the Thought Leader Academy. So it came back, and here's how it started the email that it rewrote. It said, looking to join a crew of kick-ass, purpose-driven women entrepreneurs? Want to surround yourself with a community of high achievers who are just as passionate about making a difference as you are? You're in luck. Our Thought Leader Academy is starting next week, and you don't want to miss out. And then it continues and goes on through it. And so then I said, okay, how would you describe the sentiment of the original email that I had put in? And it said that the sentiment of the original email is informative and professional. The information is presented in a clear and straightforward manner. So it basically nailed the original sentiment, but you can tell that its version of fun and exciting maybe not quite fit for me, but it's done a better job of some other emails that I've had it put in. The other thing that I have asked it to do is to write some sales emails. So I give it a little bit of information about whatever it is that I want to include in that sales email, and I ask it to write a longer version of that. And it does it. And again, some of the language is more useful than others, but every single time I ask it to write a sales email, it always includes the phrase, take your business to the next level. At least once, sometimes twice in the same email, take your business to the next level. What this tells me is that millions of us online apparently use that phrase, take your business to the next level, in everything that we're selling, because that's what ChatGPT associates with sales emails. So I find that hilarious. Other things that I've used ChatGPT for is to write a poem to welcome new members to our Thought Leader Academy. So I actually gave it a little bit of information. I said the Thought Leader Academy is for women entrepreneurs who want to use their voice to make an impact. And then I wrote actually a really lovely poem that I did send out to our new members in the Thought Leader Academy. And then I do indicate on that poem, for example, that I sent out, that was generated with the assistance of ChatGPT, because I want to make sure that I'm being transparent about using something like that, especially something wholesale where it really was just that was entirely generated by the program. The other thing that I've been using ChatGPT for is to brainstorm ideas. So it's really good. You can ask it, what are 5 ideas for podcast episodes around whatever the topic is, and it will generate ideas for you. We had it generate ideas for props that we could use on stage, and actually came up with some cool ones, some ones that you would already guess, but then some good ones, new ones as well. So ideas for props, you could do ideas for blog posts, all different things that will help you brainstorm. The other thing that I've tried it for is case studies. So I gave it a little bit of information. I copied, pasted a testimonial from one of our Thought Leader Academy clients. So I pasted it into ChatGPT and I said, can you write a case study around this? And it actually did. It filled in a lot of information that was true about what the testimonial was saying, but it kind of put it into a case study format. That is a huge time saver, because then I didn't have to go write the case study from scratch myself. It understood what the format was, and it went and took the tidbits from the testimonial and put it into that case study. So that was really helpful. The other thing that I've been having fun using ChatGPT for is to write stories. So I'll say, can you write a story about a young girl who gets lost in the library and discovers her love of books? And so then it starts, once upon a time. I think it does that on purpose because I told it to write a story. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Alice. And of course, and the girl's name always seems to be Alice, even though I didn't specify that, probably because of Alice in Wonderland. And it goes through, and it's a lovely story. It's like, a story that would be fit for like a later elementary school age, early middle school age person reading it. But it's really lovely. And then I can go through and I can, in the same chat thread, say, thank you so much for the story. I'm very polite, by the way, to the AI tools. I always say please and thank you because, hey, you never know. And so I say, thank you so much for this. Can you please add some dialogue to the story? Because initially the story may be just kind of what's going on, but there's no dialogue in it. But what makes stories great is dialogue. So I ask it to put in some dialogue, and it goes back and rewrites that story, keeps what it had done before and inserts some dialogue in it, and it does a really good job. The other thing that you can do is go through, and if you say have it write a blog post for you, then you can have it go and do bullet points for that blog post, or you can have it do an outline, or like I mentioned, an agenda for a workshop, whatever your topic is, and it actually comes up with some really good information there. So I really see ChatGPT as enhancing the work that we're doing. That's why I called this podcast episode, How We Can Use These Tools to Enhance Our Content. Now, I'm not necessarily going to go and just have it generate a whole bunch of, SEO kind of clickbait articles. That's not what I want to use it for. We've seen in the news recently, CNET apparently started doing that last year and now has been called out because the articles that the AI wrote were not factually accurate. And again, that's the limitation of ChatGPT. But it is really good for doing things like brainstorming ideas, rewriting content in a certain sentiment, doing, like I said, those case studies, poems, song lyrics, stories. So have fun doing that. So those are the writing tools. Now, there's also AI image generators that will create images and graphics. Ones like Midjourney, DALL-E, and Stable Diffusion. Of those 3, Midjourney, I feel like, has the highest quality images that get generated. They are absolutely incredible. very detailed, high quality, really creative, really imaginative. If you go to the show notes for this episode, which is at speakingyourbrand.com/314, so the episode number, speakingyourbrand.com/314, I've included some examples on the page of some of these images so you can see them. They really are truly stunning, so many of them. So what you can do when you go into these image generators, you can give it text prompts. So you can tell it what you want in the image that it's creating. Do you want a person, man, woman, child? Do you want a certain type of animal, like a cat or a dog or a wolf or a zebra or a lion? Do you want it to be a landscape type of image? Do you want it to be a cityscape? Do you want buildings in it? You can also indicate what items you want in it. So maybe you want a person holding an umbrella who's standing in front of a lake with a lion nearby. I don't know. You can just give it all these different things. You can have it put chairs or lollipops or cars, whatever you want. You give it all that detail, or as much or as little detail as you want. And then you also can indicate the style that you want the image to come back in. So some of the terms that you can use are things like hyper-realistic, photorealistic, impressionist, cubist, portrait, Renaissance, black and white, photography. And so it understands what all those styles are and it will come back in that style. You can also use specific artist names in it, but I don't recommend this because there are now lawsuits against these image generators because they have basically scraped the internet and gotten all of these images, many of which are copywritten by the original artist. And so, of course, those artists, understandably so, did not consent to this and do not like that someone can come in and just use their name as a prompt, and then it will generate imagery that looks just like what they create. I mean, it's unbelievable how accurate it is. So yeah, so some of these image generators are getting sued for that. And I totally understand where these artists are coming from. What they have said on a podcast that I listened to recently, one of the women, she's a cartoonist named Sarah Anderson, and she's part of the lawsuit, is that what they really want are the 3 C's. And yes, like so warmed my heart that she had a framework and she called it the 3 C's. What they want is consent. So they want to be able to opt in for their imagery, their creations to be in these image generators. So they want consent. And if they do consent, then they want credit and they want compensation. Again, totally agree with that. Now, one of the things that maybe we can call it a downside, and then eventually, hopefully, an opportunity, is that the images of women that it tends to create do tend to be very sexualized. And that is even without putting any type of wording like that into the prompt. You can see that because that's what's on the internet. Those are the images that are found on the internet related to women. And I mentioned this in that Trends episode about the Lensa app, which everyone was using late 2022, where you would upload about 20 photos of yourself and then it would create these kind of like really beautiful images of you based on that. And what women were finding was that it was creating kind of sexualized versions of themselves without them asking for it. They didn't indicate that. That's what they wanted back. And the Lensa spokesperson basically said, well, that's what's on the internet. That's what our data has been trained on. So that's what they're getting back. Again, I don't think that's a good enough reason. I think we need to put some guardrails around that. So just to be on the lookout for that. And so all of this being said, that this is so much in flux. This is why I find this field so exciting, because we don't know what it's going to look like 6 months from now, a year from now, much less 3 to 5 years from now. You know, some of these lawsuits are going to be sorted out and for good. I'm glad that these issues are being talked about. So we here at Speaking Your Brand are working on our own AI app, and I'm not quite ready to release the details of it, but definitely stay tuned to learn more, because one of the things is that we want to make sure that women's voices, writings, speeches, perspectives, experiences, and stories are getting enough weight when we're asking, especially text prompts, to give us back writings. Right now, these writing tools like ChatGPT, because they've been trained on basically, most of the internet and all of the books that have been published, we know that there have just been more books published by men than by women. More men are media figures, are politicians, are speakers, are public figures. So much of their writing and news stories about them is what is on the internet. And we want to make sure that women are getting equal weight. So if you would like to make sure that you know as we release updates related to the app that we're working on, the best thing to do is to get on our email list if you're not already. You can do so very easily by going to speakingyourbrand.com/join. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/join. And really, I believe that the key to thriving in this age of AI that we're going into is to be proactive and adaptable, really embracing the technology, playing with it, experimenting with it, trying it out, staying informed so that you can really position yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that AI is going to have to offer to us, no matter what our business and what our industry is. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that it encouraged you to try out ChatGPT and these image generators. Again, links are in the show notes to all of these so that you can go create your accounts there. We're going to be continuing this series on AI with interviews with women about how AI is affecting the industries they work in. So definitely make sure to hit subscribe or follow in your podcast app so you don't miss those upcoming episodes. And if you haven't yet listened to last week's episode and the trends episode, definitely go back and listen to those as well. Until next time, thanks for listening.